Shortly after 9 p.m. on the night of Thursday, April 2nd, 41-year-old Larry Marley was shot dead by a loyalist murder squad as he answered the door of his North Belfast home. When the assassin struck, Larry Marley was alone in the house with his wife Kate and the youngest of their 6 children, Satanta, who was just 2 weeks old. As well as being a devoted husband and father, Larry was also a volunteer in the Irish Republican Army. He had been active from the beginning of the struggle and was a well-known, almost legendary figure in the close-knit Ardoyne community where he lived. He and Kate were married for 21 years. Larry was first imprisoned in 1972 in the cages of Lankesh. By then, the couple had had 3 young children. Lawrence Jr., now aged 19, Emmanuel 16, and Joseph 15. In March 1975, Larry Marley was one of 10 Republicans who escaped from Newry Courthouse. They were appearing on charges connected with an earlier escape attempt. On the run, he resumed active service, but was recaptured in Belfast in 1977. He was charged with possession of weapons and sentenced to another 10 years in jail. Shortly afterwards, Kate gave birth to twins Sean and Seamus, now aged 13.
He drives me back. Where do we go to all that? Don't, you can go on this side. Down there. It's no, we just have the accident just again.
Larry Marley was released in November 1985. At the time, the family was interviewed for a Scandinavian TV network.
When he gets out, what will that be like?
Great. Great. Well, we can't wait till he gets out now. I mean, it'll be 13 years then, when he's getting out. So, we're hoping now when he gets out, well, he'll probably try and get a job, and the kids, they can't wait till he gets out, because they're all big, like, you know, and he wants to spend more time with them, and it's like, he's made all plans, like, what we're going to do.
You've been 13 years in prison. How do you feel today?
Today, I feel very sad at leaving most of the mates behind. Because I know now that the sort of policies that's been implemented within the jail, it's going to be an attempt to break down the prisoners. That's basically how I feel.
But seeing your family again, seeing your sons, and being free.
Well, but you're saying being free, but I'm not free. Because it's like the British Army goes into your land, they section off a part of it, then they put you in prison. Then the day they release you, like, how are you going to feel? Like, you're not going to be happy. Most of my kids now have grew up. I wasn't here while they were growing up. I was being put through the conveyor belts of the system now.
What about your life in prison? You were on the blanket. Could you describe that?
Well, basically what it was I was up in the cages, special cat prison, that's what they call the ones who they were sort of recognising as political prisoners. I tried to escape numerous occasions. In fact, I did escape. I was away for a year. But when I was recaptured again, I tried again. What happened after that was, while I was at large, I carried on my role as I seen it. I was charged again with other acts, and I got another 14 years for it. So I was sent down to the H blocks, so I refused to wear the prison clothes. I was down in the H blocks for 4 years and 3 months on the protest. I watched most of the hunger strikers. I knew nearly them all. I watched some of them in the wings before they went up to the hospital, 3 weeks, getting abuse from the screws. There's one of them, Lorne McEwen, was pushed about by the leg of screws. I know most of them fairly well. So I have seen at first hand just what it's like being in there, you know. And I don't know if the media puts it across even to the like of other countries, just what did take place, you know. The beatings were regular. You were sitting in a cell, you had a towel around you. Sometimes, other times you had the blanket around you. You didn't wash, you didn't slap out, you were forced to put your excreta on the walls. Whenever you poured the urine out the door, you used to come up with squeezies, sort of mop thing, push it back into the cell.
How did you manage to endure this? I mean, such a long time.
But you see, people talk about endurance. What I believe is the endurance is being done by the families. Okay, I'm committed to what I believe in, but on top of that there, I have also the expect from my wife and from my sons that they also feel the same commitment as myself. And I don't think that anybody in there thinks of him, the person. I don't think there is any egos. I think the egos over the years have been beat right down. You feel, all the feelings go till the leg of the families because they're the ones who are enduring the hardships. You look about you, you see, not just my own family, just look about these streets here. You see the people unemployed, there is no future at all. You have an occupational force in the country. Now, their sole role, they try and portray themselves as peacekeeping. It's nothing like that at all.
How do you see the future for your sons?
For my sons, I see a good future for my sons because I believe that there is an awareness creeping amongst the Irish people. I'm talking about Protestant also, that they have to build a better future for the like of their children and stuff. Now, under the sort of system as it is now, I don't think anybody sees a future because it's not a current system. You just even have to look at the National Health Service. You look at all the cuts that are happening now. It's all geared so as to put the money back to a few. And if the Irish people care about themselves and about the old woman who's up the street in the winter dying of hypothermia, then there has to be an awareness that we all must work together to move forward, to better everybody in Ireland. But that door can never be done until the Brits are pulled out of Ireland.
Still convinced that there could be no peace for his children or for Ireland so long as British occupation forces remained on Irish soil, Larry again resumed active service. He did not live to see his 6th child christened. Because of the British occupation, Larry had been able to spend only 2 short years out of the previous 15 with his family. On the night of Sunday, April 5th, volunteers of the Belfast Brigade, Oakley na hÉireann, saluted their fallen comrade and made it clear that they had paid their tribute to their volunteer. Nevertheless, British Crown forces were deployed in massive strength. For 3 days, horrified TV viewers round the world saw heavily armed RUC men clad in full riot gear battening unarmed mourners. The ghoulish events in Ardoyne were by no means the first attacks by British forces on an Irish Republican funeral. Up until 1983, though, Republican funerals had largely gone unmolested, and as this photograph of the funeral of IRA volunteer Charlie Hughes shows, British soldiers actually paid the tribute of saluting the remains. For more than a decade, by unspoken agreement, the IRA and, on the whole, the British, observed the right of the bereaved, even in war, to bury their dead with dignity. As late as December 6, 1983, at the funeral of Tyrone volunteers Colin McGurr and Brian Campbell, the RUC and British Army stayed off the streets. 10 masked and uniformed IRA volunteers escorted Colin McGurr's coffin through the small town of Coal Island, passing only yards away from the town's RUC barracks.
As the procession passed the police station, there was little sign of the security forces, and the town came to a standstill as 10 masked IRA men escorted the coffin through the streets.
Only 2 days after the funeral of McGurr and Campbell, the RUC tried out a new policy. Their target was the funeral in the tiny North Belfast nationalist ghetto of Bawnmore of INLA volunteer Joseph Craven, which they anticipated would be fairly small. The Crown forces staged a show of strength, and a senior RUC officer snatched Craven's belt and gloves from his coffin. Between then and the funeral of Larry Marley, the RUC and British Army escalated their attacks. They violently disrupted or harassed more than 25 funerals. They staged massive shows of military might and firepower. Their aim simply was to terrorise the nationalist people off their own streets. It was the same aim that lay behind the infamous attack by Crown forces on civil rights marchers in Derry on Bloody Sunday 1972, and on the 1984 internment commemoration in which Belfast man John Downes was killed. The funeral of young Derry volunteer Kieran Fleming, 2 days before Christmas 1984, was the scene of the most gratuitously violent RUC attack so far on a Republican funeral. The RUC had come dressed for confrontation in full riot gear. After children threw a few stones, the RUC fired at least 4 plastic bullets into the mourners. 2 people were seriously injured, one of them a radio journalist. As a pretext for such brutal attacks, sometimes the RUC demanded the removal of burial gloves. Sometimes they insisted on removing the tricolour.
But the funeral of Charles Breslin did not turn up as scheduled. It was halted shortly after leaving his family's home at Innisfree Gardens because police objected to the coffin bearing a tricolour and paramilitary beret and gloves.
But they also attacked private funerals, such as that of volunteer Jim McKernan in Belfast, or Mary McGlinchey in Bellaghy, County Derry, where no flag was on display. On the same day as volunteer McKernan's funeral, the RUC looked on at a distance as John Bingham, the Belfast military commander of the loyalist UVF, was given a military-style funeral. Bingham had been executed by the IRA, who had identified him as the leader of a sectarian murder squad which had killed at least 5 Belfast Catholics. The following month, the RUC targeted the funeral of a 61-year-old Republican veteran, James Spotter Murphy. The RUC violated the funerals of Republicans, even when they knew there would be no formal IRA presence, and even, as at the funeral of Larry Marley, when the IRA had already paid its final tribute. Larry Marley's family decided that he would be laid to rest on Monday, April 6th, respecting his wish that he be buried in a manner befitting a Republican soldier. But by early morning, it was clear that the RUC intended to stamp its authority on the funeral. They saturated the entire neighbourhood. Heavily armed RUC men in full riot gear surrounded the house.
A very narrow pathway was flanked on both sides by RUC men, and it was impossible for one person to walk down, never mind a coffin being carried down it.
Because of the RUC's aggression, Kate Marley and her sons decided that the coffin should be taken back inside the house.
We are calling off the funeral today because of the refusal of the RUC to allow us 20 feet space on either side of the cortege. We are asking mourners to reconvene tomorrow at the same time. We are also appealing to Cardinal O'Fee to intervene and allow my father to be buried in peace and with dignity.
In support of the Marley family, that night at least 3,000 people attended a protest march up the Falls Road. On Tuesday morning, April 7th, nationalists from all over Belfast and the 6 counties rallied to support the Marley family. Hopes were high among the people that the procession would move off peacefully. 2 clergymen, Father Jerry Reynolds of Clonard Monastery and a Methodist minister, had made it clear to the RUC that the family simply intended to drape the coffin with a tricolour. But again the RUC forced confrontation.
When we come out of the house, the police presence, the RUC presence was double what it was yesterday. It was just impossible to move. Once we had reached the steps, it started to close in, and this provoked the people. We have decided to call the funeral off today because of the disturbance this morning and because the RUC are still present. And tomorrow morning we will attempt to bury my father.
Urgent attempts were again made to contact Bishop Daly, but they were unsuccessful.
We strongly object to the RUC presence. There have been many Republican funerals throughout the past 15 years. There has been trouble at none of them whatsoever. The trouble has only begun because of the new policy of the RUC in attempting to prevent these funerals. They have created this problem, not us.
But you feel it could get ahead if the RUC agreed to step back rather than to go completely?
If the RUC were prepared to be sensible and to withdraw from the immediate vicinity of the cortege, allow mourners their right to be associated with the funeral, then certainly the funeral could take place in peace and with dignity and without trouble.
Thanks very much.
That night, several thousand people assembled at the Republican Memorial in Ardoyne for a protest rally, where Belfast priest Des Wilson castigated the RUC for dishonouring our fellow citizens.
I would be ashamed to my life, if I thought that the church, of which Larry was a fellow member with myself, did not rise up in anger against what has happened.
I have been in Belfast from early yesterday morning, and I have been very, very proud of the Marley family and of Kate Marley in particular. Her strength has been absolutely unbelievable. And the mural on this wall states, it's not those who will inflict the most, but those who will suffer the most who will be victorious. has suffered this last couple of days. And Kate Marley, at the end of this funeral, will be victorious because the RUC will not have their way. She has seen to that, and we, the Republican people of Belfast, Derry, and the rest of the people who will come to Belfast tomorrow from around the 6 counties will see that the RUC will have no victory.
Shortly before 10 a.m. on Wednesday, the family of IRA volunteer Larry Marley carried his tricolour draped coffin from their home, where he had lain for the past 6 days. By now, a wide spectrum of opinion was outraged at the RUC's callous thuggery. Nationalists turned up in even greater numbers than before, unintimidated and determined to bury the IRA volunteer with honour and dignity. In the 45 minutes that it took the funeral procession to walk the half-mile to Holy Cross Chapel, several RUC attempts to hem in the cortege were frustrated by resolute mourners. After the Mass, the procession paused for a few moments outside the house where Larry Marley had lived and died. Then it moved off towards the Bone and New Lodge areas.
We do not accept the criticism that perhaps there has been a very heavy-handed attitude by the police to this funeral. Is there not a tradition, even in a war situation, that you do not actually interfere with the burial of the dead?
You know the problems that the RUC face in these very difficult matters. You know perfectly well where the solution lies, that if we could have responsible behavior in matters of this kind, then these problems would not arise in this way.
Hundreds of mourners from the New Lodge, Newington and other areas lined the route waiting for the funeral to pass. At Divis Street, at the start of the Falls Road, almost 2,000 people waited patiently for several hours. The Crown Force presence was massive, but it was clear that they had failed to intimidate the Marley family, and they had failed to intimidate the nationalist people. The British press acknowledged it was the biggest display of Republican support since the 1981 hunger strike. The London Guardian reported that even patients at the Royal Victoria Hospital came out onto the streets in their dressing gowns and slippers to give support.
The soldiers started centuries of shame, but they could not make us turn. We are a river flowing, we're a river flowing. Again the soldiers came, burnt our houses, stole our grain, shot the farmers in their fields, working for a years we have been down. The secret of the water sound has kept the spirit of a man above the pain descending, above the pain descending. Today the struggle carries on. I wonder will I live so long to see the gates being opened up to a people and their freedom, a people and their freedom. Upon a time there was Irish ways and Irish laws, villages of Irish blood, waken to the morning, waken to the morning.
7 hours after the funeral had started, the coffin of IRA volunteer Larry Marley was finally laid to rest.
Well, I kept thinking of Larry because I kept, to me, Larry would have done that. Larry would have felt the same way to me, although he's not here, but to me, Larry, what would you say? Larry would have kept on until he got his own way. Like, I mean, Larry would have said, well, that's it. The RUC's not going to break us, and that's it. And that's why I kept thinking, even Lawrence and London, just all the kids kept saying that Larry wouldn't have done that ever, no. You keep it up, because if they had wanted it, my neighbour came through, right lad, I was says, well, that's alright, but I kept saying to the kids, what are you thinking? I kept saying, Mum and Dad, what I wanted you to do that. So I said to Lawrence, I says, well, Lawrence says to me, he's the oldest, says to me, what's up to me and you? He says to me, whatever you think. He says, if you want to go ahead, son, I'll go ahead. He says, no, Mum, he says, there's too much out there here. And I knew myself, he says to me, the murder out there. He says to me, if they started, because we started even when I wakened up. They were started in the crowds, pushing the crowds up near the door. They were up the very back gate trying to, pointing one another what way they could kick the back gate. And like, I'd stand watching them, making faces at Lawrence, sticking their tongue out at Lawrence, making faces out at me up at the top window. And I says, well, no way. And he says to me, well, we'll try it. And he says to me, if they move back, he says to me, well, that's alright, he says to me, but if they don't, he says to me, I'll bring it back. And as soon as we got down the steps, they started crowding me, so he says to me, well, I'll bring it back again. I mean, I wanted to go on, he says to me, but if it keeps on, he says to me, I'd have kept going on, I would just kept
every
on,
day?
every day.
No matter how long it would take?
I'd have kept on going. I would have, I know myself, I would have, like, he says to me, no, just bring it back again.
4 weeks after this funeral, IRA volunteer Finbar McKenna was killed in an attack on a Belfast RUC barracks. Despite prior assurances from the RUC to the family that there would be no interference with Finbar's funeral, in scenes reminiscent of South Africa, steel-helmeted RUC men battened and kicked peaceful mourners, and after minor stone throwing, fired at least 5 plastic bullets at head height into the crowd. At least 19 men and women received hospital treatment. Establishment politicians and church leaders could no longer ignore the anger of nationalists in the 6 counties and belatedly outvied with each other in denouncing the authorities. Their real concern was that the uncontrolled sectarianism of the RUC was exposing the fraudulent claims being made under the Hillsborough Treaty, claims that the RUC was now reformed, non-sectarian and acceptable to nationalists. Events show the exact opposite. The RUC, clearly on political instruction, soon announced that they would review their policy on funerals. In newspaper advertisements, RUC Chief John Herman undertook that in future, Crown forces would not physically intrude or impose themselves on future burials. May 1987 also saw the funerals of 8 IRA volunteers, tragically mown down at Loughgall by undercover British soldiers. Against a background of international media coverage, the RUC pulled back from confrontation, and for the first time in 3.5 years of bloody attacks on Republican funerals, relatives were able to bury their dead in peace and with dignity, and IRA comrades to pay their last farewell. This respite was undoubtedly won by the steadfastness of many relatives, particularly the stand taken by Kate Marley and her children. However, within a few months, the sectarian RUC were as uncontrolled as ever when they brutally attacked the funerals in Derry of IRA volunteers Eddie McSheffrey and Paddy Deary. These scenes of state repression indicated that the RUC were under virtually no political control. But whether they showed too that the RUC's earlier promises to leave funerals alone were just a public relations exercise, only time will tell. Republican mourners have proved that they will not be battered into the ground. From experience, they know that they can win not just the struggle to bury their dead in peace, but the much larger struggle to force a British withdrawal, and after so many sacrifices and so many heartbroken homes, to establish peace in Ireland at last.
The time has come to part, my love. I must go away. I leave you now, my darling girl. No longer can I stay. My heart, like yours, is breaking. Together we'll prove strong. The road I take will show the world the suffering that goes on.